origin story is very, very important. So what we did is we did a workshop teaching people how to do origin story. And then also that was a smaller offer to her larger offer. So boom, you do the origin story. Now you've actually got the outline of your book. Trust factor built in, and you're one step further to the bigger goal. So that was her power offer.
You've lowered the barrier to entry, essentially. So they're not jumping across as big of a stream. There's a stepping stone to get them there. Welcome back to Digital Dominance. I can tell you right now, this is going to be a powerful episode, and that's because my guest today is going to talk about how to craft a power offer for your business. A lot of business owners don't really give their offer too much thought beyond asking, how much should I charge? But there's so much more to it than that. And that's why I invited Carla Cherry to join me today, since she is the queen of power offers. So let me tell you a little bit more about her. She runs a gamified cohort called Power Pack to Profit that helps business owners, coaches, and consultants step up their game. And I can tell you firsthand that it works because I made massive progress when I was part of it in early 2023. She's all about consistency, accountability, and getting you to implement what she's teaching you. And before she started this group, she did some other really cool stuff that I want to mention. She was a producer for Larry King and some other shows, and she's booked celebrities ranging from Dick Van Dyke to DJ Cascade. She has a ton of experience and connections, and I'm really excited for her to share with us today about power offers. So welcome to the show, Carla. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited. And obviously, we're going to talk about power offers today. But before we get to that, I wanted to hear your thoughts on a different subject, which is excuses. As entrepreneurs, we always have a million ideas, and we often go so far as to buy a course or make a plan or even set a goal related to that idea. And then many times we do nothing or anything else. And then we make excuses to ourselves when we don't make progress. So yes, entrepreneurship means we're in our own head a lot and we're doing a lot of things by ourselves. So when it comes to stuff like this, it's not even that we lack the drive or the ideas or the skills. What we lack is accountability. And I think the reason your cohort is so effective is that accountability is at the heart of it. So my question here is, do you agree that accountability is like an antidote to excuses?
Yes, exactly. So I'm really glad that you're touching on this. This is one of my favorite things to talk about is accountability. And it didn't used to be, which is really interesting. I would say that for me, I woke up one day several years ago and I got really tired of one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back with my own personal goals. And I realized after taking another course, what was different about that was everybody inside that course seemed to be A, connected, and B, they were up leveling themselves at the same time as up leveling their business. And
Mhm.
so, and then I can, do you want me to go into the background of it, of how I started it?
Sure. Up to you.
So I did a challenge where I decided, okay, I'm done with one step forward and two steps back. And I saw this challenge online called 75 Hard. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to put my personal goals into it. And I'm going to stop trying to like setting my alarm and not getting up. And I'm going to stick to a particular diet that I wanted to stick to, which was no sugar, no flour. And then exercise regularly. So these were goals that I had, and I used that challenge as a catalyst to get there. And so what I liked about that challenge was you had to complete a certain amount of actions, and if you didn't do those actions every day, you had to start over. So it was a container. It forced me
Mhm.
to do those actions. And if you've ever heard about 75 Hard, it's one of those contests where if you finish it, there's other people. It's just like doing a marathon. You get a tip of the hat, like, hey, you did it, because it's a really hard thing to do. And so for me, it was like I have to complete. It's all or nothing, and that was the container. So after I did it, I did a triathlon, which I never thought I could do. But then
Good
when
for
I
you.
did consistent actions every day, thank you. When I did consistent actions every day, what it dawned on me, this is actually not that hard.
Right. Procrastination is a habit, right? And we fall into that and just get used to hitting snooze or whatever. But I
Default.
like, yeah, the 75 hard setup where you talked about having to start over at the beginning. If you miss the first couple of days, not a big deal because you only have to redo a couple of
That's
days.
right.
But you are not going to let yourself start over on day 54, right? If
That's
you're
right.
feeling groggy, you're going to do it anyways. So that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. So then what happened for me was I realized it dawned on me. I had this moment, aha moment, where I realized, what if I applied this to my business? What if I took this concept and applied it to business? What was possible? Because if I sat down and thought about doing a triathlon in the beginning, I was like, no way, that's crazy. But then after I did 75 days of consistent two sessions of 45-minute working out, it was actually not that hard to do a triathlon. I mean, I literally just plugged in the things and did it. I broke it down, made it
Mm-hmm.
simple and easy. Today I'm running, today I'm swimming. Caveat, did not practice enough on the swimming and almost died in that leg. I turned around and did backstroke and I was like, am I disqualified? Does backstroke count? So if you ever do that triathlon, please do. The swimming in a pool is not the same as a lake. You actually
Nope.
are getting a bit of a break every time you turn around.
Yep.
Did not realize that because I was like, well, I didn't touch the side. Anyway, that's a whole side note. But anyway, so I realized if I do these consistent actions, then you can actually create massive goals and achieve them. And so when you talk about accountability, I think the hard part for people is not having a container. So that's what I created, was the container for it, because that's the hardest part.
Yeah, and finding other people to be accountable with, because you can't,
Yes,
most people can't do this by themselves. There are a few
exactly.
rare people who can, who have the discipline, but most other people, we need someone to hold us accountable. So that's why the group aspect is so important.
100%, and that's also where the gamification comes in. So if we made, I decided to make it a game. So I wanted a fun element in there so that it's not, when I first started thinking about creating an accountability group for people, what I didn't want to become is this substitute teacher with a red pen coming after you. I had
Hmm.
people say, well, are you going to make people screenshot and prove that they're, I'm like, no, I don't have the time, nor do I have the interest in like going back and back checking and seeing if this is going to be the honor code, and if you lie, you're lying to yourself, and that actually should feel worse than lying to anybody else.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
implemented that piece. But yeah, you're right. So I've also been part of groups where they're like, oh, you're gonna have an accountability group partner, and you're gonna have an accountability partner. And I had the absolute worst partner ever. She was like, oh my gosh, I just believe that if we try our best, we can just try again. And it was just like, talk about excuses. It was like excuses, like layered in this like sugar coated, we're not going to beat ourselves up, um, garble. I don't know what to call it, but it was not a fit for me. And I'm like, why are we even calling ourselves an accountability partner if we're just going to give ourselves an excuse every time we get on the phone? Like, what a waste of time. Very nice person, not the methodology for me. I'm like,
Hmm.
let's go in, let's go hard, and let's go all the way. My mother said to me years ago, I did gymnastics growing up, and I would be like, oh, I don't want to miss this birthday party, or I don't want to miss this thing. And she would say, you're doing it all or nothing. We can quit if you want, but it's all or nothing. So I'm so grateful that I got that from her, because I instilled that in my daughter, and she's doing quite well. So it's an all or nothing situation. You can quit, but if you say you're going to do something, you go all in. That's the idea. And then having the right, like you said, having the right accountability partners. So for me, it was about setting it up, setting the framework up for success.
Okay. That's awesome. And I want to move us on to the power offers too, but I'm glad we were able to kind of jump into that a little bit. And guys, if you're listening right now, whether or not you join Carla's cohort, you need to get some sort of accountability system in place. Otherwise, you're just going to keep spinning your wheels and, not making any progress. So
That's right.
now that we've done some soul searching, we're going to move on to the topic of the day. And Carla, I'm going to hand it over to you to teach us as much as you can about power offers.
Okay, so feel free to ask me questions. So,
Hmm.
so in terms of a power offer, what is a power offer? For people asking that, obviously that's their first question. And so I take a one step back and say that I help a lot of people that are moving from corporate to consultancy, or who are building a coaching program. So what happens when you go from corporate to consultancy? You are an expert, a lot about what you're doing, but all of a sudden you're in this new platform, You're on this new plane of having to now sell it. And a lot
Yeah.
of times when you're, well, most times when you're in corporate, you don't actually have to get the funding. You're paid a paycheck. It's a completely different game when you actually have to go out and meet clients and sell to clients. And so, people sit in. I say what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness. People stay in vagueness about what does my client want, what's a good package for them, what how should I price it, what all these, they have all these questions. And so that's where Power Offer was born, because I ended up helping people when I moved over from production to coaching. Everyone said I need more clients. Well, if you look under the hood, you need a better offer, period. So a power offer is, it starts at the core by answering someone's biggest problem, right? So if you're not sure where to start in your offerings, or creating a power offer, you want to look for where is the biggest problem. Where are they losing sleep? What is keeping them up at night? Where are they actively seeking a solution? That's where you start. You don't start in another way. You've got to go straight to where is the gap? Where are they looking for a solution? So that's number one. If you're not answering a problem that they have, that they're losing sleep over, they're not going to pay you as much. And the bigger the problem you can solve, the higher ticket you can go. So that's number one. So that's the core. And then around it is, I think of it like a wheel. So at the hub is the biggest problem. And then they have all these ancillary problems or satellite problems that come up around the big problem. So a power offer not only answers their biggest problem, but it answers the satellite problems going around it. So, and then you package it where it's easy and user friendly. So you want ease of packaging. Also, you want to develop a customer journey. So you've got to find an entry point into how to have the conversation with somebody, right? So a big part of a power offer in terms of selling it is you've got to sell to what they want and not to what they need, but then deliver both. So you want to find your entry point. Where are they actively looking for a solution? What's a big enough problem to solve? And then how can you package it with all the satellite problems, addressing those as well? And now you have a power offer.
Okay. So that's a good definition. Can we make it more tangible for people who haven't gone through this process before? So maybe let's take you as an example, right? So if you're a coach, a generic offer might be, business coaching to get more clients. Where would you go from that to the power offer where you're meeting all of these needs on the hub?
Sure. So number one is research, research, research. When I say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, is because most people are not reaching out to their actual prospects and finding out what they need, which always baffles me. And honestly, when I was introduced to this concept years ago, I was like, wow, that seems so scary to actually talk to your prospect. But if you're not talking to your prospect, think of Verizon. Verizon will survey you every time you're on the phone. There's a reason for that, because they are constantly perfecting the offer. They're constantly trying to figure out feedback from their clients. So I'll give you an example of a power offer that did quite well. So we had a player in the program called Dominique, and oh my gosh, I have English friends because I just said she's called Dominique. Always makes me laugh. She's named Dominique. So Dominique, she was a project manager. She was like a glorified project manager, kind of taking a catch-all, like any project was coming to her, glorified VA. And she decided that she wanted to go into the publishing industry. So she looked for the gap, and we built her power offer around that. So what's the gap? The gap is between the publisher and the author, giant gap, because these are high-end publishing houses. The high-end publishing house does not have time this day and age to tell the author all the things that they need to do to promote their book. And now that you're in the digital age, it's not just about writing a book. You've got to do a whole set of promotion to get it to the forefront. The author doesn't want to bother the publisher. Giant gap. So what we did right there was we looked at that and then we built, okay, what's the core offering? And then what are the satellite offerings around that? How can you deliver it to, you want to ask these questions. How can you deliver it to your client so that it's faster, it's easier, and that the packaging is in a place where it's easier for them to enter your ecosystem. It's easy for them to, in terms of like, look at the onboarding. Look at how can you onboard them where it's a seamless, easy process. Think about when you're going to 5-star versus McDonald's. So like you go to a 5-star restaurant, right? Everything has been thought of. They're taking up the utensils. The second you finish your plate, they've taken the utensils as well. They're, scraping the crumbs off the table. They've got the, the wine thing chilling by the side. They're pouring, your glass goes down. They fill back up. There are all these attentions, these bits and attentions to detail. So when you're going through the research process, you want to ask questions. And at the core of it is, what are their fears? What are their deepest desires? And what are the things especially that they're afraid to tell you? So when you go through the research process, you want to find out what are they afraid to say to you? And when you're doing research, the beauty of that is that it opens the door to be able to find out the answers that are, especially the answers that your prospect is not going to tell you. And then when you have all those answers, you plug it back in and then you realize, okay, what do I want to address? What are the things that they most want? And I'll give you a really good example around that. We did the research at a coach who is, she helps divorcees, and she did the research on 10 different prospects. Number one fear was finance. And my client wasn't even thinking about doing anything financial with divorcees. That didn't even cross her mind. But lo and behold, she had a background in finance. So don't you know that we put that up and added that to the first module, and we put that in every sales call, every pitch, every sales message, her sales messaging across the board.
Yeah.
We're going to address the finance piece, and not just address it. We're going to make sure that you, in your next chapter of your life, are going to be completely comfortable, independent, financially independent. We address what it looks like with the kids, right? So we're going to teach you how to have these conversations with the kids. We're going to teach you how everything around finance was addressed in that first module of her new program. And it was a complete game changer.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a great example. And I want to point out that, this is a lot of research, right? And you have to, when you're thinking about offers, don't just think of the price or the name of the offer, right? This is a whole landing page, right? You can take all this research, and these are all bullet points and paragraphs where you are unpacking the offer so that as the person reads through it, more and more, they're like, oh, yes, I need that. Oh, this is great, right? By the time they get to the button that says sign up now, they're already sold, right? So don't get caught up trying to get that perfect sentence at the top. Like, yes, that's important to start, but you have a place to put all this stuff.
Exactly. So we're honestly, when you're selling it, you're wanting to hit all the psychological points, right? So that's what you're looking at in the sales piece of a power offer is by the end of but with your example, which is a beautiful example, by the end of the sales page, they should be saying, yes, that's me. Yes, I need that. Yes, that's me. And I need that too, all the way down the sales page. And so to the point where they get to that, hit the button, they would actually feel silly in their minds if they didn't hit that yes, book this call button. And that's the goal of a power offer in the sales portion, is to get them to the call. Now there's a whole nother module that comes through on how to, run a proper sales call. But your goal with high ticket offers and power offers is to get them to the phone or the Zoom call.
So then a next question is, let's say you've done all this work. What's the best way to validate this offer that you've now put together?
The research. You want to validate it way before you put the offer together. So it's literally like getting the answers to the test before you take the test so that you have all the answers.
But is there something, let's say people aren't converting, how do you go back and find out what you missed?
Well, there's so that's a really interesting question because there's so many different points of conversion that you have to hit,
Hmm.
right? So there's introducing yourself is a conversion. They have to you when you introduce yourself, somebody has to go, I want to hear more. Yes, immediately. You're talking my language. So that's a point of conversion. You want to hit a conversion, you got to convert them from the one to one. If let's say you're in a networking meeting, you got to convert them to now want to have a call with you. Now, when you're on the call with them, you got to convert them to consider your offer and have a second call. There's a lot of different points of conversion. If you're going cold, if you're doing cold outreach, then your sales page has to convert all the way down the page. So there's many different types of conversion.
And that's a good point. And I want to, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think a lot of times we get caught up on solving the wrong point of conversion. And so we're like, hey, I'm not getting phone calls. Let me go change the color of the buttons. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably not the reason. If so
that's
go through
right.
those steps that you just mentioned. If you're not getting past the introduction, then you need to rephrase what you're saying or the way you're intoning your voice, something like that. Solve one
A
thing at a time.
100%. If you're talking about sales page, like we're going into your world, if you're talking about sales page, then the title, number one, the title has to speak to exactly what they want. If you're doing a video, your video sales letter, it's got to be on point. You've got to give enough evidence in your video sales letter that you build the know like and trust factor, that they trust you. You've got to give enough away in that video that they say, wow, she really knows what she's talking about. When
Right.
you go even further down, you've got testimonials. Your testimonials have to be rock star. A lot of people do testimonials wrong. I mean, there's so many different points that you have to convert.
Yeah, and basically you're removing objections every step of the ways. So,
Exactly. And that's another point. That's a big thing you want to find out in the research. Your testimonials should be hitting the objections
mhm.
so that they don't even have to ask. They don't even have time to think of the objection themselves.
Right. And so then they read a testimonial that says, I was worried that I would have to blank, blank, blank.
Exactly.
But once I joined,
Exactly.
I found out I didn't have to. Right. So,
Exactly. I mean, everybody has the number one, is the ROI worth it? But you have to remember there are a lot of other there are a lot of other objections that people have, and everyone's different. Like I have a book coach. The number one objection was time. And these are for people who even want to write the book. They've been dreaming of writing the book. It's on their bucket list. They're going to get it done. But
mhm.
to write a book takes time. So she has to hit that time objection. And what we did for her power offer, and this is a good example, is because they're all different. Because that objection was so big, we had to create a smaller offer to get to the bigger offer. And so what we did for her was we created origin story because that is what someone's walking around going, how do I tell my origin story? Especially speakers from the stage because they have to connect deeply right away, but also people who are coming from corporate because a lot of times people come from corporate and it's not a smooth thread into consultancy. So they need to figure out how to take the credibility and expertise they had in consultancy and thread it over and in a very succinct way make sense of why it is they're doing what they're doing now and what those credibility builders were and how they're going to affect and showcase what they can do now for you. So origin story is very, very important. So what we did is we did a workshop teaching people how to do origin story, and then also that was a smaller offer to her larger offer. So boom, you do the origin story. Now you've actually got the outline of your book, and she's got the
Right.
know like and build trust factor built in, and you're one step further to the bigger goal. So that was her power offer.
You've lowered the barrier to entry essentially. So they're not jumping across as big of a stream. There's a stepping stone to get them there. And you figure
Yeah,
that out through the
100%.
research.
A
Yeah.
100%. And I don't always recommend that for people because people are like, oh, I heard you're supposed to sell something smaller. Not always. Not always. It depends on who and it depends on what your offer is, and it really depends on the research. So yeah.
That's awesome. So let me recap what we've done so far. We've touched on accountability, which is obviously the foundational piece of making progress. And then we've kind of gone through this idea of creating a compelling power offer in order to move your business forward and what it takes to do that and put it together. Obviously, it's going to take some work, that research and kind of rewriting sometimes and testing it and looking at those different conversion points before it's perfect. You're not going to get it right the first time.
That's right.
But then the next logical question is, how do you get that offer in front of more people?
That's a great question. So it depends on where you are in your journey. So I always say you've got to sell to people. You've got to sell one to one before you can sell one to many, because you've got to nail the messaging and the conversions on a smaller schedule before on a smaller level before you can go one to many. People make the mistake all the time. They run into somebody that says, "Hey, I want to blast your stuff out, and we're gonna, do ads." Well, if they haven't done this work first, you got to do this work first. So it depends on where you are in your journey. So if you're a newer coach or you're a newer consultant, I would spend some time in some one-to-one rooms, and lots of networking meetings, and really practicing your introduction. I mean, so many people get lost just in the introduction. They don't know how to introduce themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, your introduction has to be like bam, right away. It's got to make somebody want to talk to you, and you're not trying to win the room, you're just trying to win your target. That's a big mistake people make. So number one, if you're newer in the rooms with just talking to people and getting lots of people and practicing sales calls, now you've got your system down, you've got your target client down, you've got your messaging down, you've seen what has now converted in a one-to-one. Now you go one to many, and that depends on where you want to play. Is it in LinkedIn? Do you want to do automation? Do you want to go to, Instagram? It doesn't really matter as long as you just pick one and nail that platform, get that down, and then go to the next. That would be my biggest
Got
suggestion.
it. So then what about the people who say, all right, that's great, but I'm really shy, or I'm not good on camera, or et cetera, et cetera? Back to the excuses.
Well, what's interesting in the cohort, we used to, in the beginning, I had this idea that we have to work people, people have to work up to get on camera. Let's get them just, going for a while. We're not going to add the video component until the end. Well, now I've changed that, because what I've realized is that if you have good direction, and if you have good direction and you have a coach or you have somebody that you're working with, um, take the direction and make the video. Of course, it's not going to be your best video, the first one, but I've found that people can actually make really good content from the beginning if they have some type of direction or have a coach or someone like yourself that they're working with. Yeah, it's really surprising. I tested it in the cohort and it works. I mean, we have people making straight out of the gate first week, making great content. And I realized, well, why wait? Why wait
Yeah.
3 weeks, 6 weeks? If you have the formatting down, and look, even if you're not working with somebody, go watch a YouTube video, like watch how people are doing it, just get the formatting down and then jump right into it. I think, what the barrier to entry is people's ego. Honestly, if we were really calling it
Mm-hmm.
out, and we all have it, so there's no shame in that game. Everybody's got an ego. We're built with it. We can't help it. The quickest way I got over it was to make a commitment. This goes back to accountability, to sticking to a schedule. So what I did at first was I said, okay, I'm going to go live in my Facebook group once a week. I made the commitment. I told people I was going to do it. Therefore, it made me accountable, even if it was just like one or two people who were paying attention or thinking that I was going to be there. But I made that commitment to myself, and I made that commitment to other people. So then I went live once a week and turned that into content. So I think it's about, number one, making a promise to yourself and sticking to the promise, and knowing that no matter what, you're going to get better. But also, it can't hurt to have a little direction from a coach or someone like yourself who's going to be able to say, this is how, this is the lighting, this is the camera, and this is a framework that you can go with. Now just go get in the arena. As business owners, you have to get inside the arena, and the sooner you get inside the arena and you make mistakes, the sooner you're going to get better, no matter what.
Exactly. Showing up, you get better. You can look back at your old videos later, re-record them if you want, and you'll see how far you've come.
100%.
So, Carla, I really appreciate you sharing with us today. This was super helpful. I feel like we could just keep talking for a long time on all of this, but I will want to wrap up the episode here. Hopefully, people are going to start applying this advice, getting that accountability system in place, noticing the excuses they're making, and working on crafting those power offers. So, guys, go check out Carla's website at carlacherry.co. Look into her power offer programs if you want help with that. Carla, are there any closing thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I would just say, I was talking to somebody about this today. Like, you can get a vision board, you can get a journal, but until you make a commitment to yourself to stay consistent with your goals and also break them down into very easy, bite-sized, doable actions. And then make a promise to say to yourself consistent, just go for 30 days. If you just want to stay consistent with yourself for 30 days, magic can happen, mountains can move with consistency and just breaking it down into easy, doable things, and surround yourself with big doers who believe in your mission or believe at least in having drive as an entrepreneur. And you can go further than you think you can in a shorter amount of time.
100%. I agree. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Carla, for being on the show. And thanks to all of you guys for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much.